Every 20th of November, Uganda and the rest of the world come together to celebrate the World Children's Day. And Every 20th of November, Uganda and the rest of the world come together to celebrate the World Children's Day. And it is via this medium that discussions are driven around the rights of children, and that is across the world, the different rights that they are supposed to enjoy as children, and that facilitating for their growth. We're talking about the right to health, the right to a good living, the right to education, the right to adequate and safe food, and all that draws us back to what different countries or different states are supposed to put in their policies to facilitate for all this, all that coming at the backdrop of owing to the fact that today is the 20th of November, and that is the World Children's Day celebrations. And today we're going to be focusing on their right to food, specifically right there. And we're going to be drawing light into the adequacy, the safety of food that they consume, and how we facilitate for that. Do we have mechanisms in place that facilitate for that? Do we have some things that are deriving us away from that fact? And weighing in on that with me is Obog Geoffrey, the Program Head, Social and Strategic Litigation from CEFROT, to expound more on this particular matter, and of course looking at the different advertisements, the different foods that are advertised here on the Ugandan market or even sold, and they are somewhat not safe at all for the children, something that we need to be discussing today. Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you so much for talking to us today.
And thank you very much
all right.
for hosting us.
And before we go any further, please talk to us a little bit about what CEFROT does and their mandate in this before we get into the matter.
Right.
CEFROT is the Center for Food and Adequate Living Rights. We are located in Gaza town, and CEFROT mainly looks at promotion of the right to food, the right to health, agricultural rights, and also trade and investment. We promote this using a human rights-based approach through strategic litigation, the program which I'm mainly in that I lead, through advocacy and partnerships, and also through community empowerment, where we work in communities. Okay. So this is what we mainly do.
Okay.
Yes.
So let's unpack this big discussion: food and the right to safe and adequate food to children.
Today is World Children's Day, as you've already highlighted, and World Children's Day, that is 20th November, we have a lot of issues that keep coming up. It is also important to note that more than 47% of our population are people from 0 to 15 years. That's as per 2018 statistics. So if it has changed, it's not that bad. So these people, children of tender years, form a significant portion of our population. So it is important that we look into their well-being and how they advance in life. And food plays a critical part of that. However, several challenges have been coming up. Right now in Uganda, there is an increasing challenge of obesity and overweight among children who are 0 to 15 years old. Or let me say 2 to 15 years old. There's an increase in obesity, and mainly this is, according to statistics in 2019, in every 4 children in 10 that you count, one is either obese or is overweight. And this incidence is higher, especially in private schools. Private schools have more children who are obese than in public schools. So this is where the challenge is. There's that growing challenge. If 4 in every 10 you meet is overweight or obese, that is a challenge for our future. This is going to be a huge burden to our economics. It's going to put a huge burden on our health system, taking care of them. So we have to find a way to reduce this, to tackle this before it becomes bad. So one of the ways is to regulate advertisement of junk food and unhealthy foods to children, and also sugar-sweetened beverages, what you'll hear people calling SSBs. Yes, so we have to regulate the way these are advertised and marketed.
All right.
Yes.
And when you speak about junk food, before we even go into the regulation, what kind of food items, if you could give us some tangible examples?
Yes, what we would call junk food is what There is the presidential initiative on healthy eating. This is where we can start from to know what junk food is. Junk food is food that is high in fat, sugar, sodium, and salt. Any food that you see that has high content in that is junk food. For example, if you find food and fat is 30% of that food, and if you find food and maybe sugars are 40%, salt maybe takes a big proportion of that food, and there is very little fiber, that is junk food.
All right.
Yes.
And this is already on the market. Like you say, it is being advertised. You want to think that by the time it is on the market and it's being advertised, it has been certified by probably UNBS and the other bodies that be. So it is somewhat proper for human consumption. So where is the call for regulating this derived from?
Yes, like you said, it's already being advertised. And the World Health Organization has done surveys around advertisements on televisions around the world. And these foods that you call junk foods and sugar-sweetened beverages, the sodas and all that, take up over 60% of advertisement. They take up a big proportion of advertisement. And like you said, they're already certified, UNBS, they have UNBS stamps. But that is where the problem is. You allow them advertise freely. The contest is not that they are not fit for human consumption. The point is that they are not safe for children.
Okay.
You allow them to freely advertise. However, you forget that they are impacting on what? On the health of children. Who are the future? Who are the future of this country? The ones to lead this country. So you cannot leave it openly without. There are a lot of things that are permitted but are kept away from children.
Absolutely.
There's a lot of content that we put on our TVs that is allowed but is kept away from children. The same thing should be with food. The same thing should be with food. Food that is unsafe for children. Food that causes bad health for children in future. Should be regulated. And the food industry knows that because they've been accepted to advertise, they know that they influence children's need for food through three ways. One, they use the children themselves, the primary market.
To be ambassadors for some of these products.
Yes, because children have money. There are children in Kampala who go every day to school with 20,000 shillings. Can such a kid afford anything he wants?
Of course, he'll buy what she saw on TV,
Yes.
probably
On
a fellow
TV,
child
yes,
speaking
yes,
about.
Yes, the kids say fellow child maybe with maybe what you would call nice food, what they think is nice. They go in their canteens, they buy that, or they are moving along the street on the roads, they see the junk food, they buy that. That is the primary market. And the food industry knows children have money. So the second way that the industry tries to target children is through the parental market, Pesta Power. If you know kids will see advertisements and tell their mother or fathers, I want that, they keep insisting on that. So that is the market. So the mothers also, all the fathers, will feel pity and feel like, oh, my child wants that.
Which parent wouldn't want to give a child?
Yes, they want to
They
see.
ask for.
Yes, they want to see their parents happy. So what the industry looks to is to advertise at the times when these children are on TV. For example, around maybe 6, 7, 8, so many children are on TV, so they'll advertise at this time. Yes. So
When you speak about this regulation, let's try to highlight where you, as separate of course, where you think the regulation should tackle. Is it in the times, the duration of the day through which these food items or beverages are advertised, that to make sure that children will not be watching at that time? Is it the packaging? Is it the representation in regulation? What are the highlights that should be put into consideration to cater for the children? Because you said, yes, these foods are safe, they've been certified, but not for the children. So in this case, you want the regulation to not be as broad as is, right? Is that where the conversation is?
the conversation is that the regulation should be as broad as possible. It should keep children away from junk foods as far as possible. You've mentioned one of the ways is to advertise beyond periods when children are what? When most children are on TV. This is the watershed period when there's a lot of what. So advertisement of junk food should be late hours of the night, probably from 10 to 6 in the morning. And this is being done in some countries. For example, if you look at Ireland, if you look at in Canada, the state of Quebec, where all these have been introduced, you'll find that the health of children, or there is less obesity in these states than in other states, their neighboring states. One of them is to regulate the times in which they advertise what? Unhealthy foods. To put them, if you want to advertise unhealthy foods, advertise them at the times when children are sleeping. For example, from 10 in the night, 10 p.m. to at around maybe we can say 7 in the what? In the morning. And another way is to stop using children characters in advertisement. For example, you get a child celebrity.
Fresh kid.
Yes, fresh kid. I think you've seen. He's probably
he's been advertising some food items that we can't be at liberty to mention.
Yes, he's an ambassador for many sugar sweetened beverages. You get a kid to advertise those beverages. Then many kids look up to this kid, and that makes them drives the kid.
So it would be an inspiration of some sort.
Yes, so that should be banned and stopped, using celebrities and also child celebrities. And another thing is also stopping school sponsorships of school events by sugar sweetened beverages and junk food industry. You'll find that many of the competitions in schools, like football competitions, sports day competitions, music, all these are usually sponsored by sugar sweetened beverage companies that sponsor these events, and in these events they supply these foods and drinks to children that are not good to their health. Then it puts children in their minds that you have to take these to maybe be a good sportsman, to maybe be a good debates person. You don't need a soda, or you don't need to eat fried chicken to be a good sportsman or to be a good debates person. That is a lie. So this is what should be stopped. And another thing is advertisement and sale of food around schools, junk foods around schools. Regulation should be introduced to prohibit advertisement and sale of junk food around what? Around schools. Then around school. For example, in some countries, when you go to 30 meters around the school, you're not supposed to advertise junk foods. So that is 30 meters from every side of the school. There's not supposed to be any junk food advertisement or a billboard like we can see near our schools. Right. Yes. Then I think you mentioned something about labeling. Yes. If we are able to pass laws that cigarettes must be labeled, why shouldn't we pass a same law warning the health of children that junk food is unhealthy to them? Why don't we pass that law?
On the branding, you mean?
Oh, yes, on the branding.
So that it's clearly put on probably a beverage can that not serve for consumption for probably children below the age?
Yes, so there should be that front of the package labeling. For example, you'll find that tobacco, we have that in the tobacco industry, but sugar kills more people than tobacco each year. Then why should we have, if sugar is more deadly than tobacco, why should we have tobacco being labeled and while sugar sweetened beverages are not labeled? Okay. So we should introduce such front of the package warning and labeling. For example, you should put a labeling that this food contains this and this. It contains high fat and it contains high fat of maybe 40%, and put a big sign that continuous eating of fat leads to obesity and cause heart attack or something.
Don't we have this in the existing regulation, of course, around advertisement, labeling, and the whole trade around these food items? Don't we have any?
Yes, we have the Uganda Communications Advertising Standards. The Uganda Communications Commission is responsible to regulate communications, including advertisements. We have the communication standards, and under Regulation 7 of those communication standards, it provides that advertisements advertisement on activities that are intended for children should not be harmful to their health or well-being, or it should not be harmful to children. There is that regulation 7. However, this has never been used by the Uganda Communications Commission to regulate advertisement of junk food towards children. It is lying dormant. This is maybe used for any other content you can think of that is commonly used for children, violence, things like that. But it's not used for advertisement of junk foods.
Safety of the food item.
It's not used for safety of food of children. Yet, these foods are impacting on the right to health of these children. What is the use of a child eating junk food, making it their habit? And you know, these habits of eating junk food remain with someone until they grow up. It continues. So what is the use of someone eating that food, and at around 17 or 18 they are starting to get heart problems? Are you going to be useful to the country?
Absolutely not.
Yes.
Yes, so, we do not have that human capital sustainability.
Yes. So Uganda Communications Commission, the Uganda National Bureau of Standards, which regulates labeling, should come up with better regulations and speak directly to advertising of junk food towards children.
All right. You've been giving examples of that tobacco items or tobacco trade around the tobacco items. And one of the strategies that was used that we won't say has birthed a lot of fruit, but it has in one way or another reduced its consumption, is increasing prices and taxing it heavily. Do you think this can work around such items? Because like you said, there are children that go with money to school. Probably if these food items were expensive, or the tax around them was a little bit expensive, could that in one way or another reduce supply or even its consumability?
Yes, at the Center for Food and Adequate Living Rights, one of the ways we are advocating to regulate and reduce the consumption of junk foods, especially among children, who are the future of this country, is through improving and changing the fiscal policy, taxes and other towards sugar-sweetened beverages. About 2 weeks ago, we were before the Minister of Finance, also the Uganda Revenue Authority attended that meeting and represented some proposals before the ministry that were received. And one of our proposals is that there should be the mode of taxing of beverages should be changed. Currently, excise duty is charged per litre. However, our proposal is that this should be changed, and they change to taxing per sugar content. For example, the tax you levy on water or milk should not be the same tax you levy on a soda or on juice that is made in factories with sugars and what. It should not be the same. Okay. It should be different. The one with more sugar should be taxed more than the one with less sugars. Yes.
And will that work favorably to reduce its supply in the market?
Yes, it will remain on the market, but the prices will increase. However, the consumption will reduce, and for the ones which have less sugars, the consumption will increase.
So that will be priority.
Yes, that will reduce consumption, improve on the health of children, and also our general health of the population.
But you see, in the end, we are going to question where the economic impact is going to come from, because there is no doubt there is a lot of tax that is derived from a lot of these dangerous consumables, if you ask me, tobacco and the like. And URA will stand firm or government will stand firm and say this, yes, we are regulating it, but it contributes somewhat to, to the revenues that are collected. So if that is the discussion that they will be bringing forth to this, doesn't that show a different picture in terms of what we prioritize as a government?
Yes. There is that debate of the government, these people are contributing tax, these people, yes, they are contributing tax. But what is the use of collecting 10 billion in that tax, then you use it, in that tax, then again you spend that money in someone's therapy in future. For example, if you get cancer today, God forbid, or I get cancer, just to go through that chemotherapy, you need 4 million.
Quite expensive.
4 million, that's expensive. How many people can afford that in the country? And if they cannot afford that, the state is supposed to give it to them for free. So if the state is to spend 4 million on each person, or people lining up at our National Referral Hospital for chemotherapy, where is the profit in that? You've collected taxes, you're again spending it on people's well-being. Yes. So, however much it will impact tax, though it will reduce on maybe the taxes from sugar-sweetened beverages, but the taxes from non-sugar-sweetened beverages will also go up. More people will buy milk that is not milk that is not added on sugars, and more people will start to take water instead of taking what, and the sales will go up on this side.
Yes.
So they substitute.
There will be a substitute good, and taxes will be recovered on the other side.
How about sensitization in the community? Shouldn't those drives be, prioritized as well? Because it is one thing to regulate, but it is another to actually educate the consumers, the parents, that are going to, in the end, walk into a supermarket and buy all these food items. Don't you think that is where we should also shed a light on?
Yes, that's very right. Regulation should go on also in communities, and as the Center for Food and Adequate Living Rights, one of the ways we try to do that is by starting to go to schools. We normally go to schools, and we are starting to form food and nutrition clubs in schools. And one of the purpose of going to schools is to educate children that you do not need junk foods to improve on your education. Actually, these foods are impacting on your concentration. They're impacting if you're always taking sodas, you're always eating fried foods, instead of eating fruits, there's no way you're going to beat someone who is always eating fresh foods. Yes. So we go to schools because we know it's important to start putting in the mind frame of children that sugar-sweetened beverages and junk foods are not good for your health. Okay. So that children can grow up with this and knowing, because it's also known by the junk food industry that children stick with their, how do we call it, with their cravings.
Yeah, they will crave a chocolate.
Yes,
or something.
Yes, if children stick with their cravings. If you grow up at your home and every day during supper or lunch you have a bottle of soda on your table, you will continue with it even when you are older. If you grow up and every Sunday you are going to a restaurant to eat junk foods, you will continue with it even when you're older, when you get a family.
It becomes a mannerism or culture of some sort.
So this is also known. So one of the ways they start doing sensitization to children, to children, that do this on weekends. It's not a meal if a soda is not involved when you're still a kid. So that when they grow up, it remains a habit. So it's the same thing we should also introduce as civil society and as government, that when children are still young, we should push them to eat nutritious food, push them to eat fruits, push them to eat healthy foods.
Right. And where can we copy some of these regulations from? Have you studied some countries where they've put this into action and it has somewhat worked? And how best can we try to paste that into our own regulations?
Yes, one of the earliest countries to introduce regulation to junk foods in the world was Canada. And in Canada, although they didn't introduce it across the whole country, they only introduced it in Quebec. And in Quebec, what they did is that they stopped the sale of junk food around schools. Very strict regulations. They stopped the sale of junk food around schools, the advertisement of food during watershed periods, and also labeling. They put strong emphasis on that. And over the years, when you look at the statistics of obesity and overweight of children from Quebec and in other states of Canada itself, you'll find that the state of Canada has less people with the non-communicable diseases like the cancers and all that, and obesity and overweight. Then also the same goes with France. France did not stop the advertisement of food and junk food. However, France has put strong emphasis on labeling. They've put strong emphasis on labeling and warning. Your sugar-sweetened beverages must have at least half on its a labeling. Then when you go to Ireland has banned using celebrities to advertise on junk foods. They've banned children advertising junk food. They've banned using cartoon characters. Yes, I'm sure you know people that put Tom and on their processed things. They've banned all this. Mexico has done the same thing. Chile has done the same thing. Currently, South Africa has not yet introduced the legislation, but they're in the process. So if other people are taking action, why shouldn't we?
We can as well do the same. And how Sefrot, have you taken a step ahead? Have you engaged government, or have you just as civil society discussed this and you have not yet taken a step to engage government or the responsible stakeholders in this particular issue of regulating advertisement around junk food?
We've taken several steps to engage government in regulation and advertisement of junk food. Like I told you, a few weeks back, we met with the Ministry of Finance and the Ministry of, and the Uganda Revenue Authority to discuss this issue, and they received our proposals. And we had a long discussion with them, and we gave them substitutes, options, and ways how they can regulate marketing and the physical policy on junk foods. We've also continued to engage the Uganda Communications Commission, and we even filed a suit against them, the Uganda Communications Commission. And one of the responses Uganda Communications Commission gave us is that is not our work to regulate. That's one of the responses they gave us. We have also engaged the Ministry of Health. We are working together with the Ministry of Health on different activities to promote health diets among children and also to regulate food and to regulate the advertisement of junk foods and marketing of junk foods. Yes. So we continue to engage the government.
How is the academia placed in all this?
Yes, the academia has a big role to play because many of the research findings we use as Sefrot has been done by academia. The academia also has the role of being role models to show children that you don't need junk foods. If I see my teacher always eating something, or if my teacher is saying that this is the best way to live, you know, our teachers are role models to us. We always look up to the things they do, the cars they drive, what they eat. So if we see them prioritizing this, children or even adults ourselves, we do what? We tend to copy. But also academia has a role to play in the role of research and also informing the public. And many of the research, although there is little research currently in Uganda on the connection between junk food and obesity and overweight among children, although there is already one which was done in 2018 in Uganda. And it's from there that the statistics I'm quoting for you, that at least 4 in every 10 children you meet is obese. Yes.
Very unfortunate. All right. Let's wind up this talk with you giving us your last remarks.
Yes, my last remarks is that on the World Children's Day, food and nutrition should be at the center stage. We should protect our children from unhealthy diets, and we should ensure that we build a healthy state. Under the Constitution in Objective 22, the state has an obligation to ensure that it builds a healthy state and to ensure mass education to promote food and nutrition. So this Children's Day, we should remember that and keep that at the back of our minds. And also to the children out there, please know that you don't need junk food to excel in whatever you do.
All right. Thank you so much, Obo. And thanks to Sefrot for opening our eyes and, of course, driving this conversation to where we expect it should go, especially on such a day where we should be looking back at what we have done to facilitate for the safe and proper growth of children, it being the World Children's Day. Now, food is important, and it is crucial if we are to have healthy children tomorrow that are going to drive our country in the different perspectives. So that needs to start today with what we are feeding them, and that is the call, or that is the advocacy around the regulation of advertisement, especially around sweetened beverages and the junk food like you had from Obo. My name is Madrin Abukera. We thank you for watching.
Smart 24.